A bottle sitting in your bathroom right now contains chemicals linked to cancer, hair loss, and permanent scalp damage, and you have absolutely no idea it's there. While you've been trusting these multi-billion-pound brands to care for your hair, they've been using your scalp as a testing ground for dangerous chemicals. Formaldehyde-releasing preservatives, the exact same substance used to preserve dead bodies in mortuaries. But here's what makes this an absolute scandal. British consumers received £0 in compensation, while Americans got over £36 million for using the exact same products that destroyed their hair. Your shampoo, your harm, their profit, your silence. So which brands are poisoning Britain's bathrooms right now? Let's start with the absolute worst offender. Number 1, Tresemme Keratin Smooth. Tresemme Keratin Smooth promises you salon-quality results without the salon prices. Smooth, silky, manageable hair for under £5 at Tesco. Sounds absolutely perfect when you're trying to save money, doesn't it? Professional results, budget-friendly price. What could possibly go wrong? Here's exactly what they didn't tell you. Tresemme Keratin Smooth contained DMDM-hydantoin, a preservative that releases formaldehyde every single time you lather it into your hair. Not trace amounts that regulators brush off as insignificant. We're talking about significant formaldehyde exposure that accelerates with heat and time. Precisely the conditions inside your steamy bathroom when you're washing your hair. Formaldehyde is classified as a Group 1 known human carcinogen by international cancer research authorities. That's the same classification as asbestos and tobacco smoke. It damages your DNA at the cellular level by creating crosslinks between nucleotides. The exact same mechanism it uses to kill bacteria and preserve dead tissue, it's using on your living cells every time you wash your hair. University research confirmed direct links to nose and throat cancers, primarily through inhalation exposure that occurs every single time you shower with these products. You're breathing it in, you're absorbing it through your scalp, you're doing it repeatedly, day after day, week after week. But cancer isn't even the only risk you're facing. Formaldehyde causes allergic contact dermatitis in 8 to 9% of the population. The American Contact Dermatitis Society named it Allergen of the Year back in 2015. That's not some fringe organization making wild claims. That's dermatology professionals recognizing a widespread public health problem. British women reported clumps of hair falling out in the shower, filling their drains with hair that used to be attached to their heads. Chemical burns on their scalps requiring months of medical treatment. Permanent scarring in areas where hair will never grow back. These aren't isolated incidents. These are patterns of harm affecting thousands of women. Now here's where the betrayal becomes absolutely criminal. Unilever, the massive corporation behind Tresemme, settled a lawsuit in America back in 2014. They paid out £10.2 million to American consumers for their Suave products causing identical problems. Hair loss, scalp burns, chemical injuries. They knew. They've known since at least 2012 that DMDM-hydantoin causes severe harm to consumers. Yet they continued using it in Tresemme products sold throughout Britain for years afterward. They removed it from American products after being sued. They left it in British products because nobody here was holding them accountable. American consumers who used Tresemme Keratin Smooth filed class action lawsuits with documented evidence. Shannon Kenna documented clumps of hair falling out after just 2 months of using the product, with blistering on her scalp, pimples forming, burning sensations, medical treatment requiring prescription-strength medicated shampoos just to stop the damage. Emily Castillo developed actual bald spots, areas of her scalp where hair simply stopped growing entirely. Robin Lippetz experienced scalp irritation, redness, a sensation of heat burning across her head, and relentless itching that wouldn't stop. Thousands of complaints. Millions paid out in legal settlements. British users? Zero compensation. Zero lawsuits. Zero accountability whatsoever. But the betrayal gets even worse than you think. Unilever began removing DMDM-hydantoin from Tresemme products in the UK some time ago. But here's the critical problem. They never issued a recall. They never warned consumers. Products containing this harmful chemical remained on shelves for months, possibly years, after they'd already removed it from American products following lawsuits. They knew it caused harm. They'd already paid millions to American victims. Yet British consumers were still buying bottles containing formaldehyde-releasing chemicals because in Britain, there are simply no consequences for corporate behavior like this. Number 2. Pantene Pro V. Pantene promises you healthier, stronger hair with every single wash. The Pro V formula, Visible results you can see and feel, trusted by millions of British households for decades. It's Procter & Gamble's flagship hair care brand. Your mum probably used it, maybe your nan used it. It's been in British bathrooms since the 1980 seconds. Here's exactly what they don't advertise in those glossy television commercials showing models with perfect hair. Pantene's formula relies heavily on silicones. Dimethicone and cyclomethicone coat every single strand of your hair in a plastic-like layer that doesn't rinse away. For the first 2 weeks, your hair feels absolutely incredible. Silky smooth, manageable, shiny. You genuinely think you finally found the perfect shampoo after years of searching. You're telling your friends about it. You're recommending it online. Then the buildup begins its destructive work. Those silicones don't wash away. They're specifically designed not to. They accumulate layer after layer, week after week, month after month. Within 2 to 3 months, your hair looks duller than it's ever looked in your life. It feels heavy, lifeless, weighed down. It refuses to hold any style whatsoever. You try different styling products, nothing seems to help anymore. Women on parenting forums describe the reality of long-term Pantene use. One wrote that her hair became like straw, brittle, and breaking at the slightest touch. Another reported a really disgusting oily patch forming at her crown, and she emphasized this wasn't normal grease from natural oils. It was really thick, heavy oil that wouldn't wash out no matter what she tried. A third woman said she lost about 75% more hair than she usually did, with visible hair loss appearing after just the second use of the product. Here's what's actually happening inside that bottle. The sulfates in Pantene, both sodium lauryl sulfate and sodium lauryl sulfate, work overtime stripping every drop of natural oil from your scalp through aggressive detergent action. Your scalp goes into absolute panic mode, producing excess oil, desperately trying to compensate for the oils being stripped away daily. Now you've got greasy roots from oil overproduction happening at your scalp, and simultaneously you've got coated ends from silicone buildup weighing down the lengths of your hair. Multiple users reported their shedding stopped completely, immediately, after ditching Pantene. One woman described it as like turning off a tap. The hair just stopped falling out the moment she switched to a different shampoo. The formula creates what can only be described as a wax museum effect. Your hair is preserved in its silicone coating while simultaneously being damaged and weakened by sulfate stripping at the root. You're paying £5 to £6 per bottle to systematically destroy your hair over a period of months. Number 3. Head & Shoulders. Head & Shoulders has been Britain's most trusted anti-dandruff solution for literally decades. Your dad probably used it growing up. Maybe your grandfather had a bottle in his bathroom. 83% brand awareness among UK consumers. That's the highest recognition rate of any shampoo brand sold in Britain. It works for dandruff, doesn't it? The flakes disappear within days. The itching stops almost immediately. Problem solved, move on with your life. Here's exactly what they're not telling you about how it actually works. Head & Shoulders contains not one but 2 different sulfates working simultaneously in the same formula. Sodium lauryl sulfate and sodium lauryl sulfate together, creating a double sulfate formula that strips every single drop of natural oil from your scalp through aggressive chemical detergent action. Your scalp produces sebum for critical biological reasons. It's your natural protective barrier against environmental damage, bacterial infection, and moisture loss. It keeps your skin healthy and balanced. Head & Shoulders strips it completely away with their double sulfate assault. So, your scalp responds by overproducing oil, desperately trying to compensate for what's being removed. You wake up with greasy hair just 1 day after washing. You need to wash more frequently, which strips even more oil away, which triggers even more compensatory oil production, which makes you wash more often again. You're not solving your dandruff problem long term. You're creating the exact conditions that ensure you'll need their product forever. It's an absolutely brilliant business model. It's terrible for your scalp health. For anyone over 55, this double sulfate formula is particularly brutal on your aging scalp. Research from 2023 shows that women in their 50s produce 30 to 40% less natural sebum than women in their 20s. Your aging scalp has already lost a significant portion of its natural protective barrier just through the normal aging process. University of California. Researchers tested a 20% sulfate solution on men with an average age of 56. The results were devastating. Significant scalp sensitivity developed within weeks. Dramatic declines in normal hair growth cycles occurred. Hair loss phases became prolonged and more severe. The aging scalp's compromised skin barrier, Reduced ceramide levels and slower natural healing capacity means sulfate damage persists much longer and recovers far more slowly in older adults compared to younger people. Head & Shoulders Classic Clean costs £3.50 for a 400 milliliter bottle at Tesco. That single bottle will last you approximately 6 weeks if you're washing every other day. That's £30 per year minimum for a product that creates the exact problem it claims to solve. The zinc pyrithione in the formula does kill the dandruff-causing fungus. That part genuinely works, but the double sulfates ensure your scalp will never recover its natural oil balance. You'll need their product forever, buying bottle after bottle, year after year, never actually solving the underlying problem. Number 4. Alberto Balsam. Alberto Balsam is Britain's budget shampoo champion. Walk into any Tesco, Asda, or Sainsbury's, and you'll find it for 95 pence to £1.50 for a 500 milliliter bottle. The label proudly displays images of apples, raspberries, coconuts. It says natural extracts right there on the front. You're shopping for groceries anyway. Might as well save a few pounds on shampoo while you're there, right? Here's what you're actually buying for that 95 pence. Sodium lauryl sulfate listed as the second ingredient, meaning it's one of the highest concentration chemicals in the entire formula. Synthetic fragrance that's legally allowed to hide up to 200 undisclosed chemicals under that single word. Multiple known allergens, including linalool, limonene, and citronellol, and enough propylene glycol, the same chemical used in antifreeze, to strip paint off walls. Unilever owns Alberto Balsam. They manufacture it in the exact same factories as their premium brands like Dove and Tresemme. But here's the specification they use for Alberto Balsam. Make it the absolute cheapest possible formula. A factory worker who manufactures supermarket-owned brands confirmed this publicly. One supermarket's only specification for their shampoo was to make it the cheapest, not comparable quality at a lower price. Not good value for money. The absolute cheapest formula that can still legally be called shampoo under UK product regulations. Users on consumer forums described their scalps feeling sore like battery acid was being poured on their heads. That 95 pence saving ends up costing you in dermatologist visits, prescription-strength medicated shampoos trying desperately to repair the chemical damage, and permanent scalp sensitivity that lasts for months or even years. The ingredients list reads like a chemistry experiment that went completely wrong in a laboratory. Citronellol becomes even more allergenic after you open the bottle, and it oxidizes through exposure to air in your bathroom. Research shows citronellol produces positive allergic reactions in 5.6% of fragrance-sensitive individuals. You're not washing your hair with this product. You're conducting chemical warfare on your own scalp. For 95 pence, number 5, OGX. OGX built their entire brand identity around exotic ingredients and luxurious experiences. Moroccan argan oil, Brazilian keratin therapy, coconut milk, bamboo fiber. The bottles look expensive. They feel premium in your hand. They cost 8 to 12 pounds, significantly more than basic shampoos, because you're paying for quality ingredients, right? Here's what they didn't advertise anywhere on those beautiful bottles. OGX products contained DMDM-hydantoin, the exact same formaldehyde-releasing preservative that destroyed thousands of women's hair in the Tresemme lawsuits, the same chemical linked to cancer, the same chemical that causes chemical burns and permanent scalp scarring. Johnson & Johnson acquired OGX in 2016. They publicly announced in 2012 that they would remove harmful chemicals from OGX products by 2015 to protect consumer safety. But they continued using DMDM-hydantoin until at least September 2021. That's 6 years after they promised to remove it. 6 years of continued exposure for consumers who trusted their public commitments. Products containing DMDM-hydantoin remained on store shelves throughout Britain even after the American lawsuits made international news. Online beauty forums showed dozens of posts describing scalp irritation, brittle strands snapping off, and hair shedding that users described as like brake failure. The hair just wouldn't stop falling out. The particularly insidious aspect of OGX products is that symptoms sometimes appeared weeks or even months into regular use, catching users completely off guard. You'd be using the product happily for 6 weeks thinking everything was fine. Then suddenly your hair would start falling out in alarming quantities. By that point, you've already experienced significant chemical exposure. The damage is already done. Multiple OGX product lines contain this harmful chemical. OGX Biotin Plus Collagen Shampoo and Conditioner. OGX Renewing Argan Oil of Morocco Shampoo and Conditioner. OGX Anti-Breakage Keratin Oil Shampoo and Conditioner. OGX Detox Plus Pomegranate and Ginger Shampoo and Conditioner. Multiple other lines across their entire range. Consumer class action lawsuits were filed in America. Most were resolved through legal settlements with relatively small compensation payouts that didn't even come close to covering the medical expenses and emotional trauma victims experienced. For context, back in 2016, Wen by Chaz Dean settled a massive class action lawsuit for £26 million after hundreds of women sued for hair loss and scalp irritation. The FDA received over 1,500 formal complaints about that single product line. British consumers using OGX? Zero compensation. Zero accountability. Number 6. Garnier Fructis. Walk down the hair care aisle at any Boots or Superdrug in Britain. Garnier Fructis bottles are absolutely covered in fruit imagery. Apples, grapefruits, bananas, berries plastered across every single bottle. The packaging practically screams natural and healthy. The marketing promises botanical nourishment, pure fruit extracts for your hair, nature's goodness in every wash. Now, turn the bottle around and actually read the ingredients list printed in tiny text on the back. Synthetic fragrance hiding dozens of undisclosed chemicals. Linalool, limonene, citronellol, parabens that mimic estrogen in your body, propylene glycol, sodium lauryl sulfate, stripping away your natural oils. Not a single meaningful amount of actual fruit anywhere in the formula that touches your hair. The companies use what's called greenwashing. Garnier's Whole Blends line is marketed as nourishing and gentle, paraben-free, and sustainably sourced, but it's still absolutely full of chemical fragrance, sodium lauryl sulfate, and cyclopentasiloxane, a silicone that builds up on your hair over time. The actual apple extract that legally justifies putting a massive photograph of an apple on the front of the packaging appears near the very end of the ingredients list. Trace amounts only, essentially meaningless in terms of any actual benefit to your hair. Everything that actually cleans your hair in that bottle is completely synthetic, petroleum-derived chemicals. BHT, which stands for butylated hydroxytoluene, appears in many Garnier formulas. Research suggests it could potentially mimic hormones in your body and possibly lead to increased cancer risk in high amounts with prolonged exposure. The fruit imagery is a complete lie. The natural claims are pure marketing fiction. You're paying a premium price for professional photography of apples and bananas while actually washing your hair with the exact same harsh synthetic chemicals as the budget brands that cost a third of the price. But before I tell you the 3 brands actually worth your money, brands that won't poison your scalp or destroy your hair, you absolutely need to understand why this scandal exists in the first place. Why are British consumers being treated as second-class citizens compared to Americans? Why do dangerous products remain on British shelves years after being removed from American stores following lawsuits? The answer will genuinely shock you. Trading standards officers in Britain conduct exactly zero proactive testing of cosmetic products. Zero. They rely entirely on consumer complaints, creating a purely reactive system that allows dangerous products to remain on shelves indefinitely until enough people complain loudly enough to trigger an investigation. Here's the problem with that approach. Most people never connect their hair loss to their shampoo. They genuinely think it's just aging, or hormones, or stress, or genetics. They never file formal complaints with authorities. So regulators never take any action. The products stay on shelves, more people buy them, more people experience harm. But still, no complaints get filed because people don't make the connection between the product and the problem. It's a perfect system for allowing corporate harm to continue indefinitely without consequences. The UK completely lacks robust class action lawsuit mechanisms that exist in America. Group litigation orders technically exist in British law, but they're extremely rarely used for consumer products. Individual consumers bear all the financial costs and legal burden of proving harm in court. For a £5 shampoo purchase, taking legal action is economically completely irrational. You'd spend thousands in legal fees to potentially recover £5 in damages, so nobody does it. 0 UK lawsuits have been filed against Tresemme, Pantene, OGX, Garnier, Dove, or Head & Shoulders. Not a single one. Despite British consumers experiencing identical hair loss, chemical burns, and scalp damage to Americans who collectively received £36 million in legal settlements. Zero compensation for British victims. Zero accountability for the corporations.